Schumer just told the Senate, I will keep the government open. He's a yes. Are more Democrats about to vote yes and avert a shutdown? We'll have a Republican senator here to react live. America's News starts right now.
Tonight, do we have a deal? Russia's Vladimir Putin says he's willing to talk about a 30-day ceasefire with Ukraine. But what's his price for peace?
I think once that deal happens, you're never going to be in a process. I don't think they're going back to shooting again.
And after breaking his word so many times before, can Putin be trusted to keep it now? Then, protesters storm Trump Tower in New York City and demand the release of Columbia grad student Mahmoud Khalil, now facing deportation. Did the Trump administration violate Khalil's rights? Or did Khalil violate his obligations as a legal resident? We'll speak to two Muslim voices who've been very outspoken on these issues, but not in the way you'd think. And later, the Free Luigi movement gets a big boost from a mystery donor as the alleged CEO killer's defense fund tops $700,000. And his lawyers are putting that money to use. Could the adopted darling of the healthcare haters go free?
Great to have all of you with us. We have a lot of news to get to, but we begin with the war in Ukraine and the global chess game being played over how it might end or continue. When the day began, it was Vladimir Putin's move as Ukraine and the U.S. had both publicly committed to ceasefire talks. It didn't take long. Putin spoke publicly earlier today. He said Russia supports the idea of a months-long ceasefire, but the idea of peace might be much more digestible for him than the reality. That's because the conflict, which has long been described as a stalemate, isn't much of a stalemate right now. Russian forces have retaken much of the territory that Ukrainian forces had seized inside Russia, hoping to use as a prime bargaining chip. With Ukraine in retreat, Putin says a ceasefire would allow Ukraine to regroup and rearm, just as Russia has an upper hand. So, what is Putin demanding? Well, quite a lot. For starters, Putin wants to keep all the territory he seized in Ukraine. Right now, Russia controls about a fifth of Ukraine's territory. And of course, Putin never wants to see Russia's former vassal state join NATO. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff arrived in Moscow after Putin spoke, and it's now 2 o'clock in the morning there. We've heard no word on how Witkoff's meetings in the evening went with Putin. They might still be going on. Meanwhile, in Washington, President Trump held an Oval Office meeting with NATO chief Mark Rutte. The Secretary General credited Trump for getting NATO members to contribute more of their GDP on European defense. And he also credited Trump for getting the peace talks started.
You broke the deadlock. As you said, all the killing, the young people dying, cities getting destroyed. The fact that you did that you started the dialogue with the Russians and the successful talks in Saudi Arabia now with the Ukrainians. I really want to commend you for this.
Trump said he would love to meet and talk with Putin and said he hopes Russia does the right thing to get a ceasefire. He also hinted at having a bargaining chip with the Russian manipulator.
I do have leverage, but I don't want to talk about leverage now, because right now we're talking to him, and based on the statements he made today, they were pretty positive, I think. So I don't want to talk about that.
So clearly the administration is treading delicately in its public statements about Putin. Ukrainian President Zelensky, not so much. Zelensky responded to Putin's comments today, accusing Putin of it being disingenuous at best and bloodthirsty at worst, or maybe both.
We have all now heard very predictable and highly manipulative words from Putin in response to the idea of a ceasefire at the front. He is in fact preparing a rejection at present. Putin is, of course, scared to tell President Trump directly that he wants to continue this war, that he wants to kill Ukrainians.
Now, given the Russian dictator's history of duplicity and aggression, NewsNation's Robert Sherman asked President Trump a question on the minds of many of our European allies. What's to stop Putin from invading their countries?
Mr. President, some of our allies have said that they're worried that they could be the next to be attacked by Russia. You've spoken directly with the Russian president. Do you think those fears are justified?
No, I don't. I think when this gets done, it's done. They're going to all want to go home and rest. I don't see it happening. Nope, I don't see that happening. And we'll make sure it doesn't happen. Not going to happen, but we'll make sure it doesn't happen.
All right, lots to get to tonight. I want to bring in Republican Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullen now. He's a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Great to have you, Senator. Putin made it clear today he's in no hurry to agree to a ceasefire, but has a long list of demands. President Trump has already agreed that Ukraine will be barred from NATO and that Russia can keep much of the land it invaded. Should Trump concede more to Putin going forward?
Well, President Trump is bringing them to the table, and that's what Biden couldn't do. President Trump is at least even having the conversation about a ceasefire. The war has been going on 3 years. President Trump, during his campaign, he made it very clear that he wants to stop the killing. Now, at the end of the day, these two countries, Putin, Zelensky for Ukraine, Putin for Russia, they're going to have to work this deal out. Unfortunately, right now, Ukraine's not really negotiating from a point of strength. And anytime you want to go in negotiations, you either want to be looking eye to eye with each other or you want to have the upper hand. That's not where Zelensky is sitting right now.
No.
And this is a war that probably can't be won by Ukraine, and they have to find a way out. Is it going to be on favorable terms? Unfortunately, I'd probably say not, but killing isn't the option to keep moving forward, because at some point it's a definition of insanity, and that's what's been going on for 3 years.
Whatever Putin does in this agreement, should they reach an agreement, do you trust Vladimir Putin to keep his word?
Well, I think there's two things to do here. One, I believe he will keep his word when President Trump is in office, because he fears President Trump. He knows President Trump is also a man of his word. So there's going to be an agreement, even if it's a handshake agreement, with President Trump and Putin. And I don't believe for a second that Putin would want to go back on his word with President Trump. The problem that we have is moving forward. So there's two solutions we have in Congress to keep them accountable. One, to keep Putin at the table. If he chooses to walk away, Congress could start initiating sanctions on Russia, which can and will hurt their economy. Their economy is pretty fragile right now. The ruble is not in great shape. And then moving forward, part of the peace deal could be sanctions from European countries and also from the United States against Russia if they were to break the treaty or whatever ceasefire was, what kind of ceasefire is signed moving forward. So there's a way to keep them. Ultimately, if a guy wants to go to war that runs a country like Russia, he can also ultimately do it, but there will be a price to pay.
Yeah, but sanctions didn't stop him from invading Ukraine in the first place.
Well, we had a very weak president in the White House at that time, too. He saw the disastrous withdrawal out of Afghanistan. I mean, when you allow al-Qaeda to come right back in after someone we've been fighting for 20 years to take over a country, there's a big problem with that. He saw weakness and he took advantage of the weakness. He didn't move one bit when Trump was in office the first time.
Moments ago, I want to get your reaction to the news. Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat, obviously, on the Senate floor, said he will vote yes on this Republican stopgap spending bill to keep the government open, saying, quote, a shutdown would give Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Doge the keys to the city, the state, and the country. Do you know if more Democrats will follow suit? You need 8 Democrats to cross over and vote yes on this bill for it to pass.
It's going to pass. I said that I actually am surprised they caved this fast. I figured they'd cave tomorrow. It's not surprising at all, because how are they going to explain this, Elizabeth? They voted for this CR in September when Biden was in office. They voted for it in December when Biden was in office. And now this is still the CR, the same continuing resolution that they voted already on twice. And now they're going to vote against it because Trump is in office. It doesn't make any sense. But now he's literally in 24 hours said yesterday that he's not going to give the support. Now he is, because he's going to try to protect the federal employees. Where was that talk yesterday?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Chuck Schumer's not a good leader. That's why he failed when he was leading the Senate last year. Keep in mind, these appropriation bills were on his desk for 6 months, and he chose not to move a single bill and said he wanted to continue running the country underneath a CR. It's the leftovers we're having to deal with because of his weak leadership when he was leader of the Senate. Thank goodness we have a very strong leader in John Thune.
All right, but bottom line, you're saying that the government will stay open. I do want to get your reaction to what's happening with the tariffs. You said last night that tariffs are a tax that is passed on to the American consumer and that everybody knows that. Here is the White House spokesperson, Caroline Leavitt, just this week.
He's actually not implementing tax hikes. Tariffs are a tax hike on foreign countries that, again, have been ripping us off. Tariffs are a tax cut for the American people.
Now, you are a very successful businessman. You are, just like Trump, a businessman. Both of you say no, that these tariffs are not tax cuts for American consumers.
Well, what this is going to do is put our economy back on track and give us an opportunity for businesses, one, to have a larger market to go to. It's going to keep getting markets or countries that's taking advantage of our generosity and allow us to have equal playing field. The president has been very clear that he wants reciprocal tariffs on countries that doing business with us, with the exception of Canada and Mexico, which that's on a national security issue. We can discuss that later. But all these other countries, he's saying, hey, listen, if you want free trade with us, we'll charge you zero, you charge us zero. We want access to your market, you want access to ours.
Right.
That's not what's happening right now. So for him to adjust it, go ahead.
My question to you is, tariffs are not a tax cut for American citizens.
No, tariffs are going to be passed on to the consumer in one way or another. A business can only absorb so much. And so when you're going to do a 25% tariff or a 6% tariff, it is going to be passed on to that product. And so the consumer is ultimately going to buy it. But what's going to happen in this case is it's going to bring manufacturing back to the United States. That's why we've already seen nearly $2 trillion already committed to the United States to build manufacturing plants here underneath President Trump. Okay. It's going to create the jobs, and we're going to have access to their markets, which will ultimately bring down the price of goods. This is just a stepping stone to get to where we need to go.
All right. Senator Mark Wade Mullen from the great state of Oklahoma. Really appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Let's dive deeper now into what's happening with Ukraine and this meeting tonight between Vladimir Putin and President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff. John Herbst is the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine under President George W. Bush. He's now senior director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. Ambassador, great to have you. So Trump envoy Steve Witkoff met tonight with Vladimir Putin. It was a closed-door meeting. How does that work? Is it just the two of them in a room with translators?
Probably. Putin wants to control the negotiations with the White House. So he doesn't want even his senior officials like Foreign Minister Lavrov conducting discussions on the war with, in this case, Marco Rubio. So he thinks Putin believes he can manipulate Trump. And so the fact that now he's dealing with a friend of Trump's, a businessman of great accomplishment, but not a diplomat, not someone who really knows geopolitics, he feels he can get the message to Trump that he wants.
So Putin is a former KGB agent. Do you think he can be trusted? I just asked Senator Mullen this. And
of course.
Yeah.
Of course he can't be trusted. And he's demonstrated that over the past 20 years, breaking multiple treaties, breaking multiple commitments. But one thing he learned as a KGB agent is how to read and manipulate people. That's his great strength. And he's using that, or trying to use that, on President Trump.
One former Russian diplomat to the United Nations said today, Putin has no interest in a ceasefire. He thinks he can win through fighting. I think he feels quite confident. This diplomat went on to say he thinks Trump is much more interested in a peace deal than he is in Ukraine.
I think that analysis is right, but I don't know for sure what is on President Trump's mind. He has essentially said he wants a sustainable peace. That means a secure and sovereign and independent Ukraine. If he agrees to the terms that Putin has tried to insert into the ceasefire, he's allowing Putin more easily to take control of Ukraine. So that would be a very bad look for President Trump if he agreed to that.
This diplomat also said that Putin is, quote, not afraid of Trump. But we just heard, we played it at the beginning of the show, President Trump in the Oval Office, and this is the second time he has said this, he's alluded to some sort of secret information he has as leverage over Putin. Do you have any idea what that might be?
No, but I would not dismiss the idea that Putin has a certain wariness with Trump. In other words, he believes he's able to persuade him, but he also understands, I think, that if he crosses Trump and Trump understands that could be very bad for Putin and for Russia.
Yeah. Putin is
right now. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Putin has already raised actually some very real, sort of fundamental concerns. Who gives the orders for this ceasefire? Who makes sure everyone on both sides follows the ceasefire, down to, a random soldier on the front line someplace? And who decides whether or not that ceasefire has been violated? None of that's been figured out yet.
Some of those concerns, some of those details are significant and need to be addressed in some fashion. But he added other things which have nothing to do with the ceasefire, that have everything to do with his intention of taking control of Ukraine. So he wants, assurances not only that Ukraine would not join NATO, and Trump has kind of conceded that, but that Ukraine would be demilitarized. And Trump's ideas about deterring future Russian aggression include putting European troops into Ukraine and sending arms to Ukraine. So Putin has simply denied things which are basic to achieving a sustainable ceasefire, which is Trump's stated objective.
Ambassador Herbst, obviously there are a lot of hurdles to go through before any sort of ceasefire deal is achieved here, but boy, it would be great if the fighting would stop. Really appreciate you coming on tonight and lending us your expertise.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Coming up for us, 98 people were just zip-tied and marched out of Trump Tower in New York City after occupying the lobby in support of Mahmoud Khalil, that Columbia University student who was arrested. Well, Columbia University just announced it is expelling and revoking the degrees of several students who took part in campus protests last year. We're going to get into that story. Then later, another twist in the legal saga of Luigi Mangione. His lawyers say he deserves to walk free because of what they call an illegal arrest. All this as a mystery donor shells out $36,000 to pay for his defense. That's coming up.
Crime is complex. I follow all the details, wherever they take me, even face-to-face with a killer.
What if being honest actually made things better?
I have been honest.
Watch Banfield, weeknights, 10/9 Central, only on NewsNation.
Where'd you get those shoes? DSW has all the shoes you need for whatever you're into. Like running shoes that give new meaning to personal best. Or everyday sneakers that make coffee runs look cool. Basically, DSW has all the best styles from the brands that always get it right. Like Nike, Brooks, Timberland, and more. Oh yeah, did we mention they also happen to be the perfect price? Find a shoe for every you at your DSW store and DSW.com.
A discussion of trade between the U.S. and its North American neighbors.
I had a great meeting with the Secretary of Agriculture from Mexico, discussing the importance of our farm products, our agriculture products, continuing to move into Mexico. Our exports are so needed. And then right after that, talked to my counterpart in Canada.
Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins on conversations this week with her U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement counterparts. Recent developments on the trade front include a suspension of scheduled tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada covered under USMCA. With President Donald Trump last week issuing an executive order to delay tariff implementation until April 2nd. Part of that order, reduction of potash imports not subject to USMCA from 25 to 10%. Potash, an important ingredient in fertilizer. The secretary, via press release, said the lower potash tariff will help U.S. growers in managing and securing key input costs as planting season soon begins. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
At National Geographic Society, we believe in the power of wonder. It drives us to explore, pushes us to see the world differently, moves us to action. And we believe that today, wonder is more essential than ever.
Wow.
That's why we're supporting a new generation of explorers to ask big questions, make breakthroughs, and bring the future closer. Wonder awaits. Will you join us? Visit natgeo.org/wonder.
A warning sign for President Trump from the country's single biggest voting bloc. I'm Mike Vittert, NewsNation Washington bureau chief. A new poll from Emerson College suggests that independents are having mixed reactions to the president's performance on the top issues. Approval ratings have dipped slightly, and much of that dip comes from the key kitchen table issue of the economy. More independents think Trump's policies are making things worse than better, 32% to 23%. Half are neutral or think it's too soon to tell. Predictably, more Democrats think his policies are making the economy worse. More Republicans think they're making it better. But on immigration, more independents approve of than don't, 35% to 30%. 44% don't have an opinion. And again, more Democrats disapprove of his handling of the issue. More Republicans approve. I'm Mike Vittert, and this is the NewsNation Political Minute.
I'm Blake Berman, and you're listening to NewsNation, news for all America. To find NewsNation on your screen, go to joinnn.com.
Weeknights, trust NewsNation to bring you the day's events across America, breaking down the issues from all sides with critical analysis that's tough but fair, pursuing the truth in search of justice. Elizabeth Vargas, Chris Cuomo, Leland Vittert, Ashley Banfield. The new primetime on NewsNation.
So what do you say? Let's get after it.
News with respect for all Americans. Weeknights starting at 7 Eastern only on NewsNation. To find NewsNation on your screen, go to newsnationnow.com.
This is The Making of America from the Jefferson Media Group. Crazy Horse was a war chief of the Lakota Sioux whose battlefield exploits made him both admired and feared by friends and enemies alike. He grew into manhood fighting the Crow, the Shoshone, Pawnee, Blackfeet, and other traditional enemies. But in the mid-1860s, those enemies banded together in the Black Hills to fight the settlers and the armies sent to protect them. Crazy Horse played decisive roles in those battles, including General Custer's defeat at the Little Bighorn. In life, he refused to have his picture taken, but today, his face is carved onto Thunderhead Mountain and stands 563 feet tall. This has been The Making of America. I'm Michael Emerson, and you can visit us at jeffersonmediagroup.com.
All right, the firestorm over the arrest of Mahmoud Khalil shows no signs of subsiding. Khalil is the Columbia University grad student and anti-Israel activist who was arrested by ICE over the weekend. He's here on a green card and faces deportation from the United States. Today, nearly 100 people were arrested after a group of protesters completely took over the lobby of Trump Tower in New York City. The demonstrators are from a Jewish group named Jewish Voice for Peace, and their message was loud and clear: free Khalil. The Trump Tower protesters chanted, "Bring Mahmoud home now," before being marched out by police with zip ties around their wrists. The Trump administration would be happy to send Khalil home as long as that's his original home, which is in Syria. Khalil is still locked up tonight in a facility in Louisiana, where he is likely to remain until at least next week. Federal prosecutors are trying to get his case moved to the state of New York, where he will have a better chance of landing in front of a judge they hope will be more sympathetic to their cause. It's also where he lives and where his wife, who was 8 months pregnant, lives. The Trump administration detained Khalil because of his role in creating anti-Israel protests at Columbia University. They say he, quote, led activities aligned to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization. And that includes handing out flyers with, quote, pro-Hamas propaganda. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Khalil's status as a legal permanent resident does not give him the First Amendment rights of a full citizen, even though the Supreme Court has ruled otherwise in the past. Rubio says that Khalil's support of Hamas makes him a legitimate target for deportation, even if he hasn't been charged with any crime. It is important to note that a green card application does come with an obligation to disavow terrorism. And as we've noted before, both the Constitution and numerous laws give the executive branch a lot of leeway with immigration enforcement. Khalil's legal team, however, isn't buying it. They say his arrest is politically motivated and is an attack on his free speech. His arrest is a hot-button issue, and that shows no signs of letting up anytime soon. Just yesterday, hundreds rallied in Lower Manhattan, and a clash broke out when a counter-protester whipped out a Trump flag. Well, my next two guests are two Muslims who've been very outspoken about Khalil Mahmoud and Mahmoud Khalil and the anti-Israel protests, but not in the way you might assume. Amjad Taha is a political analyst and influencer in the United Arab Emirates, and Obaid Al-Zabi is also a political analyst based in the Middle East, and I really welcome you both here. First, I want to get your reaction, both of you, very quickly to the news that came out this afternoon that Columbia University just announced it is expelling and revoking the degrees of several students who were involved in some of the worst protests on Columbia University last spring. We had buildings that were overtaken, broken into. What's your reaction to that?
I think this is very important and is very positive position to where the education and the knowledge institutions should stay at, is the fact that you should revoke and remove those who are actually putting your Western civilization, your place of education and knowledge, are making it a hostage for a propaganda that's all the way in the Middle East, for example.
Should they have done it sooner?
Yeah.
When the protests were happening instead of several months later when they lost $400 million in federal funds?
Well, I think it's important for the administration of the university to prioritize the students' education. If you come to the United States to study, you should be trying to learn from American values and appreciate the great country that America is. And you shouldn't be organizing anti-American protests or trying to start movements that have anti-American values.
All right. Amjad, I want to read something that you just tweeted out. Really caught our eye. Quote, "No Muslim or Arab country wants Mahmoud Khalil, an anti-Semitic, racist Hamas sympathizer. He roamed Hezbollah's terror hubs in Beirut before infiltrating Columbia University not to learn but to radicalize. His mission is to hijack students' minds, useful idiots destined to become either human shields or mouthpieces for Islamist extremism." Wow. First of all, do you have any evidence? What evidence do you have that he roamed Hezbollah terror hubs?
Well, he was living in Lebanon and with the Hezbollah's areas, and those Hezbollah's areas exactly where you train to be an anti-Semite.
But you don't know with first-hand knowledge that he actually
the fact that he was existing in that area, there is no person that existed in that area where he was not radicalized. That's number one. When also about the post that he made we're speaking about the 8th of October, when he went and made all the Columbia's a protest about bringing the war home, and by that he means to the United States of America. So here he's not targeting Israel only, but also we're speaking about the state of the United States of America. Also on the 24th of March 2024, where he invited the PFLP, which is a designated terrorist organization that's in the United States of America, and he brought the spokesperson of it. We're speaking about Khalid Barakat, who is also wanted, and he made him to speak on the Bernard Center for Research of Women. What they do, they're using these research centers and they use the institution, the educational institution, to radicalize the student, and also to make those students as hostages of Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhoods all the way in the Middle East, where in the future you be the spokesperson of these terrorist organizations that are the Hamas, what we call Hamas supports networks.
So where do you land? What is your opinion of Hamas? What is your opinion of what happened on October 7th?
So Hamas is a terrorist organization, and they attacked innocent civilians. They brutally murdered them, and they put the whole Palestinian cause in danger. And they put a lot of their fellow countrymen in a really difficult situation, and they used civilians as human shields. They built their tunnels under children's hospitals and all kinds of things like that. So I think they're commonly understood in the Middle East to be a terrorist organization.
And they should not be in Gaza, and they should not stay in power. Hamas is the Muslim Brotherhood armed forces in Gaza, and they should not play a role in the future of Gaza. If you care about Gaza, then you should stand with the State of Israel when it's eliminating every member of Hamas, because they are the ones who kidnap babies, kill women, rape children, and that's what they did and they're doing. The fact that those students who are right now protesting in New York, the question is to them this: if you care about humanity and if you care about freedom of speech and if you care about the freedom of people, how come you never protested about Aiden Alexander, who is actually from New Jersey, and for the past 500 over 500 days he is a hostage of Hamas. They didn't speak about his freedom. They didn't demand it. They didn't go to Trump Tower and occupy it, asking for the freedom of such a New Jersey citizen.
Why are so many American college students falling for this, in your opinion? If that's what you think is happening here, why do we see so many of them out there, cloaking themselves in Palestinian flags, waving poster boards with Yahya Sinwar's face on it?
So there's a few things happening here. It's to do with intersectionalism, and there are groups on the left, of the political left of America, who have found that aligning with these guys will help them get votes and get into power. And because so many are radicalized and activists as a day job and activists as a habit, this was another opportunity to disagree with Trump and to get into a political battle with the right wing of the United States, who's now in power.
And remember, Anwar al-Awlaqi, who was a terrorist and also got the citizenship, American citizenship, was eliminated by the United States of America in Yemen. He studied in Colorado University, and then we're speaking about Sayyid Qutb, the godfather of the Muslim Brotherhood. He also studied in the United States.
No, a lot of it's very well documented.
Just because you studied in the American university doesn't make you some kind of a democratic person. You are actually, they are radicals, and they are danger for the Western civilization and society. All
right, but bottom line, both of you support the deportation of this man.
I think myself, I pray for the deportation of such an individual to save society, to save children, to save the students and the women in the United States of America.
Thank you both. I hope you'll come back. It's been very interesting to talk to you, and it's a perspective I think we need to hear more of. Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Coming up for us, ever mix a box of cheap wine up with a bottle of ginger ale and call it champagne? Well, that's what you might have to do as Trump's tariffs threaten to jack up the cost of imported bubbly by, get this, 200%. It won't cost him a penny. He doesn't drink. But how might a protracted trade war impact the American consumer and the economy? Coming up next.
Tired of late-night politics?
All idiots all the time.
Stay up all evening with Antenna TV and enjoy your favorite classic sitcoms. Designing Women.
You're kidding! Oh, they stole my heart.
Becker.
Check out the Hippocratic Oath. It doesn't mention nice.
The Drew Carey Show.
Hey, sounds like fun.
Classic comedy all day, all night on
Antenna TV.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, the grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Every year, millions of pets go missing, leaving families heartbroken. If you lose or find a pet, Love Lost is here to help. Our free, easy-to-use platform uses photo matching technology across multiple media platforms to bring lost pets home. Just upload a photo and quickly search the largest national lost and found pet database. Let's unite to reunite, because every lost pet deserves to find their way home. Register today at lovelost.com.
When the game is on the line, championship teams know the game plan. They communicate and work together to win. We all need a game plan to protect ourselves online. Talk to family and friends so they know how to stay safe too. Create strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, update software, and recognize and report phishing, because online safety is not something you want to fumble. Get more game-winning tips at CISA.gov/secure our world. Then share them with family and friends.
The key to unlock the next breakthrough in cancer research could be sitting in your driveway. Stand Up to Cancer's vehicle donation program makes it easy to turn your unwanted vehicle into funding to support innovative cancer research. So when you're looking to get rid of your old car, truck, motorcycle, RV, or boat, why not donate it to Stand Up to Cancer? You can be a driving force in cancer research. Donate your car today. Visit standuptocancer.org/cars to learn more.
Wrinkles, gray hair, and hearing loss are common signs of getting older. But being short of breath, having tightness in your chest, coughing, and wheezing are not. If you are experiencing these symptoms, you may be one of the millions of people who are living with a condition called COPD but don't know it. Early diagnosis and treatment can add years of better breathing to your life. For more information, talk to your doctor and visit copdfoundation.org today.
You're listening to Elizabeth Vargas Reports on NewsNation's audio stream. Available 24/7 on the NewsNation app, or just say, Alexa, play NewsNation.
We asked parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
We just kind of knew from the beginning that we were family.
They showcased a sense of love that I never had before. I mean, he's not only my parent, he's like my best friend.
At the end of the day, it's all been worth it. I wouldn't change a thing about our lives.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. Brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Plan on flying? It's time to upgrade to a Real ID. Because in order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a Real ID, or you'll need another acceptable form of identification. So don't wait. Find out how to get your Real ID at tsa.gov/Real ID. That's tsa.gov/Real ID. Or visit your local DMV. And then you'll be cleared for takeoff.
Heads up, athletes, coaches, and parents. Play for life, not just points. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death, especially in black athletes in sports like football or basketball. If you feel shortness of breath, chest pain, and fatigue, or have a family history of HCM, talk to your doctor. Don't let HCM bench you for good. Learn how to stay in the game at heart.org/HCM student athlete. Your heart, your health, your move.
Every day, women like me go to the doctor for annual checkups for conditions like breast cancer. Early detection saved my life. But women with disabilities face a cruel reality: inaccessible medical facilities and equipment.
I went to a doctor's office I was told was accessible, but when I got there, I couldn't get through the front door.
Our veterans deserve better. Help PVA fight for access at pva.org.
Champagne bottles on Wall Street tonight after President Trump threatened new tariffs today of 200% on all wine, spirits, and yes, bubbly coming out of Europe. The threat helped send stocks plummeting once again, and investors were probably just relieved when the day was over. The S&P 500 closed down more than 10% from its record high just last month, ending in correction territory. The Dow and the NASDAQ both sinking deeply in the red as well. The sell-off, analysts say, a sign that investors are on edge. Wall Street is allergic to uncertainty, and the whipsaw of President Trump's on-again, off-again tariff policies is heaping more uncertainty on the markets daily. Today, the president was in one of his protectionist moods. Judging by his remarks during that Oval Office meeting with the NATO Secretary General, you'd think he has as much scorn for free trade as he does for DEI.
We've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. No, I'm not going to bend at all. Aluminum or steel or cars, we're not going to bend. We've been ripped off as a country for many, many years. We've been subjected to costs that we shouldn't be subjected to.
Trump's threatened levy on Europe's alcoholic beverage industry is just the latest tit for tat in this global trade war. It's in response to the 50% tariff the European Union imposed on American whiskey, a tariff that itself was in retaliation to the U.S. steel and aluminum tariffs. That's the thing about trade wars. Nobody really wants them, but once they start, nobody can stop them, at least not without appearing weak. And we know that President Trump doesn't like to appear weak. Caught in the crossfire, of course, is small business. Businesses that were already dealing with the consequences of an already uncertain future, like this craft brewery in Chicago. The owner of Beguile Brewery says these tariffs could be its undoing. Barley, a key beer ingredient, comes largely from Canada. And aluminum, which you need for those cans of beer, comes partially from foreign countries. A 25% tax on both those things could kill their profit margins.
It's confusing. It's hard when you're managing any business to not really know what you're going to be able to do in a month, 3 months, 12 months. It impacts hiring. It impacts purchasing, contracts, relationships that you have with suppliers.
Still, it's hard to separate signal from noise on this one, as so much of the public bluster could be tactical posturing. While the president was talking tough in the White House, Ontario Premier Doug Ford met with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick this afternoon, saying the high-stakes gathering was, quote, productive. The meeting followed a trade tiff in which the premier threatened to impose a 25% surcharge on electricity that Ontario sells to American businesses and homes in response to those steel and aluminum tariffs. The U.S. threatened to increase tariffs to 50% in response. Another meeting has been set up for next week. All right, joining us now is former Republican New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu and NewsNation political contributor Scott Bolden, a Democratic strategist and former chair of the Washington, D.C. Democratic Party. I'm afraid people are starting to glaze over as I do the tit for tat history on these tariffs. Governor, 200%. Trump is now saying he'll impose on European wine and champagne. More tariffs, he says, are coming. The market's diving. 401k accounts everywhere are shrinking. Consumer confidence is fading. How is any of this good?
Yeah, well, I think you hit it right. I think a lot of folks are glazing over. I give you credit because you started talking about alcohol, wine, and breweries, and that's going to
we tried to lure him in.
Attention. That's going to get Americans' attention very quickly. So, look, I mean, it's clear what he's trying to do, and his strategy is long-term. It is chaotic. I think I speak for a lot of Republicans in Washington that say, look, we're going to give him some leeway here. We hope that these are short-term, that he's leveraging these tariffs to get what he wants, whether it's Europe to really commit on funding their defense, on Mexico really making sure they go after the cartels, on China to making the precursors to fentanyl, on Canada to helping secure the border. So he's using them for these other pieces as well. I would love to think that we're going to get to a true free trade policy, but I don't think that that's coming. And the real challenge for me is that, look, you're going to hit inflation about 0.6%, depending on which economists you talk to. You're going to bring in maybe $150 billion, but we have a $2 trillion deficit. So it's just not going to close those financial gaps like you want to see. So hopefully it's fast, it's hard. He gets the long-term wins, and then he can undo them to get back to a little bit of normalcy, probably by summertime, something like that.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that. Scott, Boycott USA has now spiked on Google search in the past 7 days as people in Europe and Canada look for ways to stick it to America because of this trade war. 85% of Canadians say they plan to stop buying all American products.
Yeah, no, listen, that's another byproduct of a voluntary, gratuitous trade war that this chaos president has gotten us into. And to be honest with you, this issue, this is worse than the trade war itself. That is not just the anti-Americanism, but the off and on beating of our chests. I'm going to do 200% tariffs, and then I pull it back. And my issue with the president is his approach in the process. I do think Democrats and Republicans want a fair trade deal, but why does it have to be such a public display of threats with our friends to the south and to the north? And my goodness gracious, they're going to raise the price on my Veuve Clicquot, my Buffalo Trace. This has got to stop. This has got to stop.
Hey, go buy Napa wines. They're supposed to be just as great. Maybe this will be a boon for Napa.
I don't think so.
Yeah, except no bubbly, exactly. Governor...
They don't have the employees to increase production. I mean, that's another thing, the employees. We want to increase production here, but we don't Well, very often the businesses can't find the people, so it's a compounding problem.
Governor, polls show...
Another problem with Donald Trump and this approach, another problem.
Okay, Governor, as polls show that more and more Americans are actually getting anxious and unhappy with the trade war, there's this USA Today op-ed. The title of it is that Trump is actively tanking the economy. Why aren't Republicans stopping him? It warns Trump's economic illiteracy is going to drag the Republican Party down. An economy that continues to plummet in the way it has been will be a death sentence for swing district Republicans. The best time to stop this was before it began. The second best time is now. It raises a good point about Republicans who are up for re-election, pretty soon in a country that is deeply anxious about what's going on economically.
Well, look, remember, Trump is fulfilling on everything he said he would do. He said he was going to be aggressive on tariffs. He said he was going to be aggressive on all of these things. And yes, I mean, nobody wants to see a recession, but when you've overspent by trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, that's what causes inflation. And ultimately, the piper has to be paid, as they say. And so you're going to have some bumps in the road, whether it's, a downshift, unfortunately, that we're seeing in the stock market. I mean, the hope is that he's doing this, not even within 100 days, right? He's doing it fast and hard to get it done, to take those pains and have a long-term benefit, for the entire country.
10 seconds, Scott. Do you share his optimism?
Well, I can't. No, I don't. I can't tell whether the governor is bragging or complaining because Donald Trump promised resolution and against Joe Biden, and all he's given us is chaos and pain. He didn't promise his pain, and he's hurting his very constituents. This isn't a business. It's a political organization, a political country.
Scott Bolden, Governor Chris Sununu, thank you both so much. Really appreciate it. Let's hope it's all over soon. All right, coming up for us, accused CEO assassin Luigi Mangione could be, get this, a millionaire within the week. We'll explain in just a moment.
When a parent sees their child smile, they see hope. Aleem hoped that his son Rajib would have an easier life than he had. You see, Rajib, just like his father, was born with a cleft. But thanks to Smile Train, both father and son received free, life-changing surgeries, transforming their smiles into symbols of hope. To learn more and support the Global Cleft community, visit smiletrain.org/learn. Smile Train, changing the world one smile at a time.
When the game is on the line, championship teams know the game plan. They communicate and work together to win. We all need a game plan to protect ourselves online. Talk to family and friends so they know how to stay safe too. Create strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, update software, and recognize and report phishing, because online safety is not something you want to fumble. Get more game-winning tips at CISA.gov/secure our world. Then share them with family and friends.
For 75 years, the Muscular Dystrophy Association's voices have thundered through the halls of Congress.
For 75 years, we've willed the impossible into existence.
For 75 years, the MDA community has pushed the science,
shifted the narrative, and established the field of neuromuscular medicine.
And until that day, when this is all a thing of the past,
you couldn't stop us if you tried.
Join us and celebrate 75 years of breakthroughs at MDA75.org.
Is the health insurance industry? Well, one metric is the disturbing popularity of accused killer Luigi Mangione, charged in the sidewalk assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last year. Mangione's lawyers are trying to get their client out of prison by claiming that his arrest at a Pennsylvania McDonald's was illegal. That's according to new court filings, which claim police questioned and searched Mangione without reading him his rights. Mangione's legal team has a ton of evidence working against them. Surveillance videos, a backpack full of fake IDs, and even a handwritten manifesto. But Mangione's defense fund now tops, get this, $700,000. Joining me now is NewsNation legal contributor and Law and Crime Network host Jesse Weber. First, let's just start with this arrest in the McDonald's. Yep. Why are they claiming it was illegal?
Okay, so three things. First, they say officers didn't have reasonable suspicion that a crime was committed to ultimately question him, pat him down, and ask for his ID. But you and I both know, Elizabeth. He looked exactly like the suspect that was on TV everywhere else. Okay, you put that to the side. Then they say that when they approached him, they cornered him in the McDonald's, and they would say that he had a reasonable belief that he couldn't leave, that he was detained. And if someone is detained under the law, we can call that a custodial interrogation. If somebody is in custody, they have to be read the Miranda rights before they're asked any more questions.
So they're saying the Miranda rights should have been read in the McDonald's.
Correct. And they were, but later on. And they say because they didn't immediately read them to him, then anything he said afterwards should be suppressed. They put that to the side. They say then he was arrested and his contents were searched, the bag where all the evidence was found. Then they said there was no probable cause to ultimately arrest him. But here's the thing that I think the timing of this is important. They asked him for his ID. Do you remember what he was arrested for? For allegedly providing a fake identification. So if they had reasonable probable cause to arrest him, then they can also look at what his materials were.
All right, let's talk about this defense fund. It's $723,000 and counting. Could be $1 million by the end of the week. What is going on?
Just so you know, I've done this for a while. I have never seen anything like this before in my life. Now, I've seen support for people where you might say, the evidence is flimsy. I think they're being wrongfully prosecuted. I think somebody's on death row and they shouldn't be. But where you have the evidence where, and yes, he's innocent until proven guilty, but where the evidence looks really strong, like he committed this crime, and people are raising money to not for his innocence, but because they are in support of allegedly what he did, and you have these anonymous donors.
No, they're not just giving money, they're writing letters of support.
Yeah, so writing letters of support. It's very clear what this is. And how much was raised so quickly is remarkable.
Unbelievable. All right, we'll follow it. Good to have you on the show. Thanks, Jesse. Coming up for us, breaking news tonight, Chuck Schumer says he will not block that Republican funding bill, which means the government might not shut down tomorrow night at midnight. Will other Democrats follow suit? Chris Cuomo joins me live as we discuss and look at the Capitol all lit up on this beautiful Thursday night.
We asked parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
We just kind of knew from the beginning that we were family.
They showcased a sense of love that I never had before. I mean, he's not only my parent, like he's like my best friend.
At the end of the day, it's all been worth it. I wouldn't change a thing about our lives.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. Brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Heads up, athletes, coaches, and parents. Play for life, not just points. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death, especially in black athletes in sports like football or basketball. If you feel shortness of breath, chest pain, and fatigue, or have a family history of HCM, talk to your doctor. Don't let HCM bend you for good. Learn how to stay in the game at heart.org/HCM student athlete. Your heart, your health, your move.
Mommy, can I sit in the front seat just this one time? Please, please, please.
No, not yet.
But why?
Because I love you, and you're just not ready yet. Now, get in the back so I can get you in your car seat, please.
Putting your kids in the right seat for their age and size is an act of love. Check that your kids are in the right seat at NHTSA.gov/the right seat. Love protects. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Today alone, 5,370 people in the United States will be diagnosed with cancer. That's why Stand Up to Cancer funds and develops the newest and most promising cancer treatments. Stand Up to Cancer wants to provide you with every opportunity to join in this mission. By donating your home, land, or commercial property, you can help Stand Up to Cancer fund innovative cancer research. Stand Up to Cancer makes the process easy, and it may be tax deductible. Visit standuptocancer.org/giveproperty to learn more.
At National Geographic Society, we believe in the power of wonder. It drives us to explore, pushes us to see the world differently, moves us to action. And we believe that today, wonder is more essential than ever. Wow. That's why we're supporting a new generation of explorers to ask big questions, make breakthroughs, and bring the future closer. Wonder awaits. Will you join us? Visit natgeo.org/wonder.
Wrinkles, gray hair, and hearing loss are common signs of getting older. But being short of breath, having tightness in your chest, coughing, and wheezing are not. If you are experiencing these symptoms, you may be one of the millions of people who are living with a condition called COPD but don't know it. Early diagnosis and treatment can add years of better breathing to your life. For more information, talk to your doctor and visit copdfoundation.org today.
I'm Ashley Banfield, and you're listening to America's fastest growing cable news network, NewsNation. News for all America.
Your child is sick. With those 4 words, the innocence and joy of childhood disappears. But Starlight has taught us 4 other words that make all the difference. The power of play. Happy kids heal faster. That's why Starlight Children's Foundation delivers happiness through gaming, toy deliveries, and more to hospitals across the country. Learn more at starlight.org.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, the grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer on board, said he'll vote for that GOP funding bill that will keep the government open past midnight tomorrow. He said it's better than the chaos that would come from shutting it down. Chris Cuomo joins me live. Are you surprised that he said, I'll do it? We need 7 more Democrats to follow suit because Republicans have lost Rand Paul, and they need 8 Democrats to cross over to get this thing passed.
So this is a good test for Schumer. Am I surprised? I try not to be surprised by people doing the right thing. As we both know, continuing resolutions are an abdication of duty. They're just kicking the can down the road. They're not doing the people's business. Now, the irony for me is this resolution's not that different as the one that Schumer was banging Trump over the head with, several cycles ago. And yet he was going to shut the government down over it. I thought that was the height of hypocrisy, and I said it on the show. He did the right thing. Government has to stay open, even in this pathetic fashion. Yeah. And he better get the votes.